Welcome to the InfoSec Insider podcast, brought to you by URM, the UK's leading information and cybersecurity specialists.
Hi, my name's Annie and I'm here today with George Ryan, who's one of our consultants at URM. Welcome to another episode of InfoSec Insider Talk Cyber. So today George and I are going to be looking at phishing and the steps organisations can take to reduce their chances of falling victim to it. So to start us off, George, can you explain what exactly phishing is and why there are so many types?
Yeah, of course. So ultimately, the way to look at phishing is it's an attempt by an attacker to trick and deceive the receiver into performing some kind of deliberate action which is going to benefit the attacker. So we've always got the classic example of phishing email comes in. We're trying to get the person receiving that to click a link, which is always going to be kind of a dodgy link, which is going to directly benefit us. It might give us their password, might give us other information, it could be financial information, etc. It's always kind of looking to be in that position where you are influencing the way that they behave, the way they click, the way they interact, etc. I think for some reason we seem to love having a ton of terms with phishing. So, we'll have where it's by mobile, we'll call it smishing. Examples of that being you get a random text from your boss and it's like, hey, can you, go pick up some vouchers for me? We need some gift cards. Can you do that? I'm in a meeting, it's urgent, and just send me the numbers. I'll pay you later. We've got our vishing, which is just voice phishing. As people call you up, pretending to be from wherever, trying to get, again, influence your behavior and get information out of you. More recently, we've got quishing. So that's still a fairly new one that a lot of people are kind of surprised by. Essentially, that's just using QR codes for phishing. So loads of examples of that. And we're seeing it out at the moment with people putting it over kind of car parking. So you might scan it to think that you're paying your car parking. You've actually just put in your financial details again. Quite a few that are doing the rounds as well at the moment with ones in public where it's like, you've been caught cheating. It's blah, blah, blah. And again, it's trying to make people go, oh, wow, that looks juicy. I'll go scan it and then off to a dodgy website. Obviously, in the corporate world, it's again, trying to make it easy for someone. We say, your password needs to be reset. Here's the link, or you can just scan this. It will take you straight away to the website. You don't even need to type it. Again, all influence the behavior. Interesting, recently we're having more kind of AI phishing that we're seeing as well. So not just AI for the use of phishing in terms of making your phishing technique a bit more sophisticated, but actually the AI agent being the source of the phishing, which we'll touch upon again a little bit later, but essentially that's them saying, use this AI agent, and actually it's just taking you to somewhere fake and you're giving away your details. So once we've got our types out of the way, you've then got your kind of phishing targets. We've got our general phishing. So we're just casting the net out. We'll see what comes back. Something might come back, it might not. Fine. Our spear phishing, because we're getting a little bit more specifics. We might be going for a particular individual or a particular organization. I'm sure many people have had it where we'll suddenly have an influx in the organization where everyone's being asked to, for example, reset their password or about a certain document, and they've been given a link in it. And then we have obviously our whaling, which is, we're going for the top, we're going for the board. The CEOs, it's very much crafted particularly to get something out of them. But with that said, all the types, all the targets, it's always kind of the same. It's just trying to deliberately influence their behavior in a way that would benefit the sender of the phishing. No matter the method, no matter who's on the other end, it's always trying to make sure that they're performing an action which benefits you.
Amazing. Thank you, George. That quishing one is crazy. I'll think twice before scanning QR codes from now on. So you mentioned this idea of phishing being about influencing behavior. Could you just talk us through how exactly does phishing achieve its goal, and how is AI impacting this?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of influencing the behavior, I think it's important to kind of look at the areas in which it can influence, because it's easy to say it's going to make you do this, but okay, but how is it getting me to do this? How is it essentially using psychology to manipulate me into doing its intention? So one of the first things, for example, we mentioned earlier with the CEO messaging you to get the gift cards, it's this desire to help. So, we're good people. We do want to help people. We want to assist. We want to make things easy. Unfortunately, from a phishing perspective, that's fantastic for them. It could be simple things as calling somewhere up and trying to get a bit more information than you probably need, but the person on the other end is really nice. They want to help you out. They want to see you. Great. I can use that to kind of get some more from them. And in some cases, you can actually add a bit of urgency onto that. If I'm calling up, pretending to be an important client of yours, and I need your help, but I need it urgently. We need to do it straight away. We might have to skip a few safety protocols here because I just need this done. And, I really appreciate your help. And that's where we start to get a bit dodgy. Kind of stemming from that is also the trust. So what attackers will do is try and mimic often kind of trusted institutions like, banks, Microsoft, for example, government agencies, to kind of get you to click on a link, right? Because sometimes you see authority, you believe the authority, you'll do whatever that link says to do, right? We've seen this even with people that are following influencers, and suddenly, I'm sure we had it with Elon Musk, they're supposedly advertising these cryptocurrencies. Click on the link, get on this. People see that, I follow this person, I trust this person. It's not actually that person. It's, generate a video of that person. It's not real, but they've got you because you're trusting. You're going, yeah, no, that's the real deal, right? Let's say you start a company and someone's emailed you. It's kind of your first week, and it looks like it's from your IT support. And, your trust is just there. You're like, well, yeah, it must be. They want to help me out. I'll do that. I'll make it easier. I believe what they're saying. And yeah, it just gets you there. Kind of related to that, we also have fear. Again, this can be linked with authority again. I'm sure anyone that sees, whether it's a phishing and it's an obvious phishing email or not, but anything which appears to be from kind of the police or to put some kind of pressure on you, it will just kind of make your stomach go a bit. And, that's what they want. They want you to be afraid, because you're not going to be thinking rationally if you are kind of afraid. In some cases, this can be, I email you, I'm the fisher in this case, and I'm sending an email saying, whoa, we've received a number of attempts on your account recently. Please, can you confirm it as you? Please click this link. You're thinking, oh my gosh, someone's trying to hack me right now. I need to sort this straight away. And it kind of turns you off from what is outside of that. You're straight focused on, no, must do this immediately. You're very zoned in, tunnel vision, but you are missing the bigger picture, which would probably tell you it's going to be phishing. We also have greed. It's an unfortunate one because it gets a lot of people, and it's easy to promise something. Often, if it looks too good to be true, it's probably not true. I'm sure if you look through your junk email, you'll be surprised how many competitions you've won recently. You might think you have ridiculous luck. I think, everyone's winning with Amazon, all sorts. I must have won the lottery about 20 times. I've just not gone around to cash it in. But again, it's just trying to really play on that, Sometimes it could be, we've got this really exclusive deal. It's really hot right now. We need you to click this link, and, you can reserve it. You don't have to pay right now. You can reserve it. Just click the link. It's reserved. And yeah, it's an annoying one for sure. equally, we've got curiosity, right? And the curiosity one, I think for me is one of the particularly interesting ones, because that is the one that will get people that know it's phishing. They know something's dodgy, but they're just going, yeah, but what if I click? What is that going to take me to? I'm kind of curious. What is this about? I know this is dodgy. I know it's a bad link, but I know my stuff. I'm pretty secure. I'm just going to click it just in case, just to see, what's out there. What would have happened if I clicked? And unfortunately, that is how they can get you. Again, relating it back to the QR one earlier, where we have the one where it's like, so and so is cheating. I've posted all the juicy information here, scan the code. Yeah. It's a curiosity. Like, I don't really need to know it, but it's juicy, it's gossip, it gets you. And then further to these two, kind of the more obvious ones, is trying to get you when you're stressed and you're overwhelmed, right? Which is why a lot of phishing, person's first week on the job, sure, anyone will say, your first week, you blink, it's the end of the week, you don't really know what's happened, things have happened, there's so much going on, and it's so hard to be focused with phishing when it comes to that, because you've got all these other avenues that are going on, which, for an attacker is perfect. Same way, you have it when people are overwhelmed. If you've got a ridiculous ton of tasks, you're in a hard position to scrutinize everything that comes in, right? Yeah, if you're working, you've done 9 till 5:30 or whatever, you look in the clock off, seeing your hours are done, you get a few urgent things to come in, you want to be done, you're going on holiday the next day, you're busy, it needs to be done. It's going to be quite hard to get you to actually, focus, read what's ahead of you, and not be getting kind of caught out there. And essentially, all of these are, the best way I can word it is, it's just pulling you slightly away from a complete area of focus where you're in control. And it's just giving you that little tug into a different kind of area. So it's tugging on the greed, the curiosity, the trust, and just trying to remove you from being fully 100% aware of what's happening. Obviously, we spoke about AI. Problem is, AI is making this a lot easier. I think kind of long gone are the days where you get a phishing email and most of the time what is essentially flagged as phishing is that spell checks come up and every other word is spelled incorrectly. You're reading it and you think, I've seen it loads. People get phishing email, they look at it and they're almost laughing. It's like, come on, you can't be catching me out with this. Like, it's not even spelled correct. You spelled my company name wrong. You don't even know what's going on here. But we're actually at a point where we have AI and items like phishing kits where it's bringing up that sophistication. It's giving you more of a technical side to it. So, okay, I might not be the best at my English, for example, in terms of my writing, my grammar might be poor, all this stuff, but actually I'll just feed that into AI and I'll ask it to write the email as if I'm a senior executive. So it's all executive talk. Well, now we've actually got rid of that lack of sophistication, and the content, if we take the content on its own, actually looks quite believable and quite legitimate. It could be at a point where they're using terms that are kind of internal to your company. Like, every company's got them, right? You've got your own kind of terms, systems, nicknames for certain systems that someone from your company will hear and go, oh yeah, no, absolutely got what you mean. You're all about this system. Yeah. Someone outside might not have that. But with AI, we can actually be getting to a point where, this AI is actually aware of how this company speaks, the most common words used, and it's just making it look more and more like it is from someone in your company. So essentially, we're summarizing that. We're looking at your desire to help, your trust, your fear, greed, curiosity, whether you're stressed, overwhelmed, not fully 100% there. We're looking to play on that, and AI is just making it easier for us because it can forgive kind of some of our shortcomings. it can make us a bit more fine-tuned, builds us up a few levels.
Absolutely. I think, as you said there, it is becoming more and more convincing. Like I would consider myself someone who's quite good at spotting phishing attempts, but even I've been nearly caught out a couple of times. So with that in mind, how do organizations go about protecting themselves from this? What can they do?
Yeah. So one of the first things I would say, and we're going to assume from this point that you've got this bit covered, is there are technical procedures you can have in place, which can do filtering on the protocols. It can do the scanning of the URLs and the links, etc. It can take out a fair chunk of phishing emails and kind of phishing that in general is coming in. It's rid of them. They're not anything to worry about. But no matter what you have, it's never going to 100% get rid of it. For example, it may block all this stuff and anything external. But what if someone's actually got hold of an account in your company that's internal? So they've already bypassed all this. It's from an internal mail. So that's where you need to be looking at kind of your other things, such as your training. So, you want to have consistent training with your members of staff. And again, I always say when you are giving such training, it's important to kind of reflect it back to their personal and private as well. Because if someone's more secure at home in terms of phishing, it's far more chance they're going to be following these practices in the corporate environment as well. So with that said, you want to give the training for looking at how you'd actually spot a phishing email, for example, or a phishing attempt. What are the things to look out for? How your company performs processes. So again, this might be that during your training, there is a reminder that as a company, you don't share things, documents, links on Outlook unless you've had approval. You don't open them unless there's approval or it's gone through SharePoint, for example. So again, this training, you're looking at kind of how we spot a phishing email and what are our procedures. Again, it might just be that when you're doing the training, you say, right, let's, remember here, if we're asked to call a number, we don't call the number that is on the email. We call the number that we know to be this person. So if we have a client saying, with an invoice that we've got to pay, well, let's use a number we know for that client, because the one on the email, if it is a phishing email, can be changed. And kind of related to that, with your training, you also want to train people on how to actually report a phishing email. Because one of the big issues that can happen is there's actually a phishing attack which is going around your whole company or a few members of your company, but no one really knows that because no one's reporting it. And if you're not reporting it, then your IT team, whether internal or external, aren't going to know what they can be putting in place to actually further protect you. So, for example, you report a phishing email and a few others have reported it, and your IT team go, oh, okay, well, this is coming from this email address. There's these kind of red flags. Right, we can now just block that. So now we don't necessarily have to worry about that one in particular. That's blocked and gone. There's no further risk. Kind of relating to the reporting as well is simulations. So, we have our training, which is going over how to spot one, what procedures we follow, things to look out for, etc. Our simulations are actually where we're putting this at a test. So this would be where the company has set up a phishing email, which is safe, where you to click on it. You're not going to lose the whole company money. You're not going to become victim of ransomware. It's a phishing simulation. You're obviously not going to know this. But what that'll do is that might show kind of common mistakes. Actually, how effective is our training? We've given training now. 50% of users still fell for our simulation. But actually, we changed training provider and we're starting to cover this, and this on training. fantastic. We're actually up to 75% people that are not falling for the phishing. So we've made visible improvements there. And again, the simulations, it just keeps people thinking about it, because if your training is annual, you learn 1 year, you've then got a year potentially to have an update, but the simulations are kind of a great one in between. So you have them every quarter, just keeping people aware. Anyway, for example, if we do go back to our quishing, it could be that your training last year didn't cover that at all, and then you're waiting all the way to next year to actually receive training on it. But actually, if you use that in one of your simulations between then, you might go, oh God, we've had 90% of people fall for this phishing simulation we've done, which is using a QR code. Actually, there's a need now for us to bring our training forward, or for us to actually just put out an emergency email, something like that, to keep people updated and in the loop of what's happening. Now, the reason I was relating reporting to the phishing simulations is it's also a good test of if people are reporting phishing. You want to know that where people believe they are receiving phishing, they are actually reporting that. It's not just going, straight deleted and there's no way to learn, but they are actually reporting that, so you have something to work on. And what can often happen in simulations is people will see it and they'll go, no, that's a phishing simulation by the company. I'm just deleting that. I'm getting rid of it. But actually, part of the benefit of reporting is the company can then learn from reporting these phishing emails. Your IT team, for example, and leadership, and they have something to learn from. And that might be the case where they go, oh, actually, looking at past reports we've had, we keep getting targeted on this criteria. Okay, we actually need to take other steps in the business and potentially increase our risk here, because this is happening more often. Equally, with your reporting, that combined with your simulations, your training, we are, without potentially realizing it, actually helping to create a culture of cybersecurity and good cyber hygiene and practice in the organization. That in itself is just going to consistently benefit you across more areas than phishing, because people are thinking that kind of style. You're bringing cyber to everyone's role. People are starting to become aware of cyber responsibilities. And from there, you will just see a rise in general cyber practice. Chances are, if you're hot on your phishing, there's more chance that you're going to give a bit more attention to your password hygiene, for example, or the fact that you might then go, actually, yeah, this is why I don't want to reuse all my passwords, because if I'd have fallen for this, which was one account, actually that's going to impact all these other accounts. So it's really good for just being a stepping stone, essentially, to building more general good cyber hygiene across the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you, George. Some really useful tips in there, especially given how predominant phishing is. How many organizations go through this. It's so common. So it's something that everyone really needs to have in mind. Thank you for your time today, George. If any of our listeners want to read about this, we've got a blog on our website, urmconsulting.com, which is called Building Cybersecurity Resilience Against Phishing. So please go and check that out. And thank you so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could spare a moment to leave a rating or review at ratethispodcast.com/InfoSec Insider. To listen to more episodes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Podbean.
Thank you for listening to URM's InfoSec Insider podcast. For more information, visit our website at urmconsulting.com.